Junkies. Welcome to this review of Inside Out 2. Yeah, a kids movie, but a kids movie that was, well, the original Inside Out film was, well, how did it land with you guys? As a family, we enjoyed it. We caught it in LA. This is the weird thing. This is why I went to see it. We saw the last Inside Out film when we were in America, and Inside Out 2 has just come out. And I thought, you know what? Let's go back. Let's go back to the idea. Let's see if what we felt was the promise at the end of Inside Out, the first film, is delivered in this, the second film. And I think the feeling was, I think the kids enjoyed it. It was kind of, you know, it was fun enough. But I think we all felt a little bit frustrated with the first film, that we were locked actually within the emotions of just one child. I felt like, I don't know if you felt this in the first film, Inside Out, it came out in 2015, that the really sort of rich possibilities of the cleverness of what the idea is, and the idea is really clever. You know, the very idea of Inside Out, the emotions inside, and giving personality and anthropomorphizing, you know, emotions into characters, and then dealing with scenarios and emotions and feelings through a combination of responses by these individual emotions and these individual impulses within the body. It's a great idea. It's a great idea. But I felt that it was at the end of Inside Out when you got the contrasting kind of use of those emotions or expression of like anger, fear, sadness, regret, you know, envy, all those kind of things. Seeing them in the parents, seeing them in other teenagers, in other kids, seeing them in a boy's mind versus a girl's mind. Right at the end, we kind of bounced between heads and hearts. And that for me was where I was hoping and felt back then, if they were to revisit this territory, that's where they should go. And of course they haven't. They haven't done that with Inside Out 2. This is set just a year after the original film. Riley, the girl, is 13, and the whole thing pivots around sport, which is quintessentially American. She's a hockey player. And this is a film that really explores and looks at the fact that she has, in a sense, developed a sense of self. Whereas in the first film, she was feeling sadness, and then you had the kind of staples of fear and anger and hope and what have you, kind of trying to remanage and recircuit her emotional kind of framework, if you like. But in this one, she's got a sense of self, but she's also got new emotions. And I think that's where the richness of this film actually kicks in. And the new emotions we've got in this film are anxiety, played by Maya Hawke, Ethan Hawke's daughter. You've got envy, played by Ayo Edebiri from The Bear. You've got fear, obviously, and you've got ennui, and embarrassment, played by Walter Hauser. You've got the usuals of anger, joy, disgust, but you've even got nostalgia who keeps poking her head out the door. So you've got these much stronger, more corrosive kind of emotions, and this is clearly a film that moves into the whole kind of, you know, hormonal, prepubescent teenager. She wants to belong. She gets manipulative, she gets snidey, she uses sort of the wrong sort of emotional cues in order to feel safe and to get what she wants. But most importantly, this is a film about anxiety. And I think whilst I feel that this still didn't quite deliver on the very thing I think I wanted, I think even our girls wanted at the end of Inside Out, the first film, this is well worth watching actually for the principal character of anxiety, because this is a film about mental health. And I think the portrayal of anxiety in this film is really, really nifty. It's quite a sort of sensational kind of portrait of an emotion that seeks to control, seeks to make sense of, and through projecting you know, possible scenarios, all the worst case scenarios, seeks to make safe one's life. And if this, you know, I mean, most American films, most kids films, most family films, they always have a sort of moral, there's always a message. And the message in this film is very much, you know, don't succumb to anxiety. Anxiety on its own is going to lead you into all sorts of trouble. And there were some really neat kind of sequences in this where the anxiety character, brilliantly played by Maya Hawke, you know, voice played, you know, really loses her shit. And there's a really kind of, you know, almost abstract, sort of really powerful, really emotional, really sensational kind of dramatic point where she freezes. They manage to manifest that wonderful contradiction of true anxiety, which is the frenzy of movement, if you like, the frenzy of energy, the frenetic sort of ricocheting energy and kinetic energy of fear and seeking to kind of cover every eventuality and every base. But at the same time, it renders you mute, and it renders you still, and you end up not moving. And so there was a great moment when it builds to this sort of crescendo where where anxiety kind of is frozen to the spot, even though absolutely everything is spiraling out of control. There are great moments in this where, the kind of core emotions, anger, sadness, hope, are kind of castigated to the back of the memory. They're sent to the back end of her mind. There's a kind of nifty little kind of sequence, really neat little sequence where they uncover Riley's kind of unrevealed or slightly embarrassed kind of passions or interests, one being a really kind of ineffective kind of character that she has a crush on from a computer game whose best form of assault is to roll up into a ball and roll into people like a skittle, like a set of Skittles. That was funny, that was neat, because it revealed those kind of aspects of one's childhood that as we grow older, we actually hold on to. I know our girls and I talk a lot about this idea of wanting to hold on to the child within, and sometimes it can be a character, it can be the music from a film, it can be a film, it can be, a show, and there's a little character in this, I don't know if he's actually a well-known American character, with this kind of little kind of fanny pack, teaching words and saying words and all this kind of stuff. So, we enter the deep recesses of her mind. Nostalgia is starting to creep out of this room. It's really funny, there's this cubby hole where on 2 occasions nostalgia comes out. And I thought what was quite clever about that was nostalgia stepping out and them all telling her to go away, she's not needed yet because Riley's still quite young. Was that pointing towards us possibly having a real adult version of Inside Out? And I think if they keep going with Inside Out, I think they need to kind of accelerate the years. I think we need to move beyond a year. Now, a year since the first film, so, she's still 13. Now, one of the things I think I was expecting and hoping for from this, and I think Pixar, of all the kind of companies that could do this, they're the best place to do it. They're brilliant when they appeal to the adult and to the children. And when this film appealed to the adult most was when we had those moments where we were sort of parachuted into the minds and the emotions and the contradictory and contrasting emotions of mum and dad coming to terms with the fact that Riley's in a mood. She's come back from this kind of hockey trip. She's not talking. And I like the contrast. I can deal with, and I think kids could deal with, and parents would certainly relish Inside Out, the next film, if there is another film, bouncing around more heads in one film. I think being locked within Riley is a little bit limiting, if I'm honest, because I kind of wanted to be inside her friends' minds, which we are at one point. I wanted to be in their minds a little bit more. I mean, it would get complicated, it could get complicated, but I think there's something more compelling about working out how different kids, different genders, different age groups respond to the same situation, which leads me to the bigger criticism of this film. I don't think it should have all pivoted around sport. Yes, sport is big in America. Yes, if you're a sporting family, yes, families sort of, pivot around sport. But this sporting kind of narrative here kind of generated ambition. And ambition seemed to be the end result. But if I'm honest, I was kind of hoping that we were going to get more stuff around boys, her feelings around boys, around the sense of belonging, around things other than quite the surface level of scoring enough goals, belonging to the right, being accepted, if you like, by the cool hockey kids, and dumping her friends and then refinding her friends. I thought where this film got most interesting in a sort of emotional sort of fashion was where it started to kind of explore the ways in matching different contrary emotions. So like embarrassment was working with hope at one point to kind of try and kind of resolve things, and in those moments I found myself sort of thinking almost like a Venn diagram. Oh yeah, you need that's that weird thing with life, isn't it? You need a little bit of anxiety, you need a little bit of kind of envy, you need a little bit of this. Do you need a little bit of all these bad emotions versus the good emotions? I think it could have been cleverer with some of that, and it wasn't. The niftiest scene for me was when there was a moment where anxiety has got this kind of room full of kind of projectors or kind of creatures or kind of emotions, kind of trying to sketch the likely outcome of every scenario and try and predict where it was going to go wrong and how they could stop it going wrong, what the possible narratives were and what the likely narratives were. So I think this film was at its strongest, and it is at its strongest when it's talking solely about anxiety, but I think it becomes a bit confused about what its sort of solution, if you like, is to surviving things as a teenager. I think the emotions all ended up kind of becoming a mulch of emotions, whereas I think what we need a little bit more of is a distinction between different characters and their emotions and how their emotions work for them. I wasn't entirely convinced by ennui, sort of sitting back and being kind of lackadaisical. I think you needed something like sloth or sloth or total laziness, because that's what a teenager is. Ennui suggests a sort of thoughtful kind of, existential nonplusness, which I thought was kind of the wrong emotion. I think they needed just out and out kind of, was it Kevin and Perry teenage style laziness? I think that would have been good. If there's a kind of message or a message in the bottle or a kind of or a theme, it's that no one emotion must kind of take precedence over others. And I don't think that in and of itself isn't a particularly unusual message or a new message. So it's fizzy, it's fun. I felt it could have been funner. I felt it could have been more funny. I felt it needed us to bounce around other heads a little bit more. I've said that a few times. I didn't think that the arena of teenage sport or pubescent girl trying to belong amongst a group of teenage girls, I don't think that worked. I thought it was at its best when we looked at what are her childhood crushes that she's holding on to, or childhood passions or interests or soft spots, or, what are they in the back of her mind, the back of her heart? What is she holding on to that keeps her in touch with the child within? And I think this might have been a better film or could have been more fun if we'd gone towards or stepped towards the whole swooning and falling for a boy. I think there has to be, for me, it's not that this isn't good, and it's not. And I know we're only talking about the film that's been put in front of us, but the idea is still such a clever, brilliant, nifty idea, just like it was in the first film. But it only for me, and I don't know if that's being an adult, it kind of really ignites when you're starting to see these same emotions dealing with things differently in different people. So I feel that if you had one of these, maybe Inside Out 3 could be inside the mind of a boy and inside the mind of Riley as they negotiate the incredibly agonizing, awkward, tempestuous process of fancying someone. That's where I hope this goes to. It just again feels a little bit like Pixar treading water rather than Pixar stretching the envelope in any way. I feel they played it safe, and I feel they kind of resurrected the same thing. It begs the possibility of a fully adult one where lust kicks in. You could have lust in a teenage one without it getting rude, couldn't you? Surely. Anyway, that's where I think it needs to go.